Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a continuation of our discussion Impulse 201, Nigerian government and politics. So, our focus today will be on centralized pre-colonial administration. And we will largely focus on the Sokoto Caliphate, which is sometimes addressed as House of Fulani Emirate system. But to give a background, we can say that House of Fulani Emirate system originated in the 19th century as a consequence of the Sokoto Jihad, that's the jihad that was fought between 1804 to 1808, which Usman Danfodio, which as Islamic reformer, spearheaded. So prior to the jihad, the area, that's the northern Nigeria, was actually inhabited by autonomous Hausa city-states such as Kano, Katsina, Zaria, and Gobir, each governed by its own monarch. And then, following the successful outcome of the 1804 jihad, these states were assimilated into a unified Islamic empire characterized by a theocratic governance structure based in Sokoto. We should equally note that after the establishment of this centralized political system in the pre-colonial Africa by Usman Danfodio, then the newly formed or established system of administration had then impacted greatly, you get it, on the region's governance structure, culture of people, and religious practices across the entire region, not just the Sokoto Caliphate and Sokoto. We should note that the emirate system was organized in a hierarchical and centralized manner, with power emanating from the Sultan of Sokoto at the apex, that's on top, who has an authority to emirs. They acted more like a lesser emirs. So it is well established that the caliphate governance structure was led by a caliph or sultan in some instances. Two names are used interchangeably, and then it was established or supported by dual capitals, one in main Sokoto and then the other one in Gondu. And then for ensuring effective administration across its vast territories that spanned over a very large area of land. And then each emirate under this operated under emirs who maintained local autonomy while pledging loyalty to the caliph at the center in Sokoto. And then the structure, of course, allowed for efficient management and the spread of Islamic principles throughout the region. This was actually what made it so very important and attractive to including the colonial masters that arrived lately at that particular time. For its administrative hierarchy, the caliphate was structured in such a way that it has a well-defined administrative hierarchy structure, starting from the topmost person and then to the last person at the bottom. And that was established to ensure efficient governance system. Governance is addressed to the last person, you get it at the bottom. So key officials that played very important roles in the maintenance of order and then implementing policies throughout the territory under the Sokoto Caliphate include number one, the Waziri, who was considered as the vizier or the prime minister. So he's prime minister. Then his main responsibility was to oversee cabinet meetings and coordinate various government functions. And then also there was a Galadima who managed local administration and governance in the Emirates. There was also other cabinet members, including the Madaki, and Madaki. There was also Dogari, and then who were crucial for military and police matters, ensuring security and stability of the caliphate during its expansion. Also, regarding still on the administrative structure of the system, after the sultan, we mentioned the emirs that followed him, and these are rulers of each emirate under the system, like I mentioned previously. So under them, of course, there is a council of elders. We usually in Hausa call it Majalisar Gari, and then there were also district heads that we call Hakimai. District heads, we call them Hakimai in Hausa, and they administered district under the emirate system. Like for instance, in the case of the federalism we are practicing in Nigeria, these district heads can be equated with state governors. You get it? And then we also have the village heads. Village heads, we call them Dagatai, Dagatai, Dagatai in Hausa. And then their role is to oversee local villages. They control villages at the local level. And then there were also ward heads. that happens to be at the bottom. We call them the word heads. We call them masu angwa in Hausa, and they handle grassroots governance activities. And all of them, they have an expanded responsibility. Take, for instance, the emirs. They are appointed usually by sultan, you get it, but often from ruling families, and then they held absolute authority, but then governed in consultation with Islamic law. That's the Sharia system. They maintain law and order, and then enforce tax collections such as zakat, jizya, haraj, you get it, unless in some instances military campaign when it becomes so much necessary. They equally acted as spiritual leaders, ensuring the spread and practice of Islam. Secondly, we have Council of Elders that are not locally as Majalisar Gari or Shura. They comprised of key officials like Waziri, that's the Prime Minister, Galadima, that's the manager of the capital, the Madaki, and many other notable officials. Their principal responsibility was actually to advise the emir on governance, conflict resolution, and community affairs. They equally served as checks in some instances on the emir's decision, although the check nature of the checks wasn't as that of the Yoruba pre-colonial political system. You get it? So for the district heads and the village heads, they had this responsibility as intermediaries between the emir and the people, because they served at the local level, and they were also responsible for local administration, such as and dispute settlement and tax collection, and then forward it to the higher level. And then they played a very crucial role in maintaining communication and enforcing policies. Most of the information from the emir or king will actually be passed through them and then to the last person. So, and then one thing very important about this Sokoto Caliphate, we can simply say that Islam has actually played a very significant influence over its emergence and operation, because Islam was actually the foundation of both political and the legal system, and then Sharia law then was used to govern both private and public life. So we can say that ulama, who are actually custodian of the Sharia, held immense influence over policy, justice, and education. Mosques sometimes become central in religious and social activities or life, and then they equally act sometimes as centers of learning. So governance was seen as a form of religious duty, not just a political authority. Again, regarding the legal and judicial system, Sokoto Caliphate implemented Sharia law through Qadis and Alkali courts. The Qadis, of course, they are the Alkali, they are the judges, and the Alkali court is the court, that's the Sharia court. And their principal responsibility is to ensure justice based on Islamic principles, while reflecting local customs and historical practices from recorded cases. Because the Islamic law adopted in Sokoto Caliphate did not prohibit everything local or traditional. It only prohibited things that are actually in contradiction to the provisions of Islam. Other things that are not, or that do not contradict the tenet of Islam, were actually allowed. So Qadis used that one also, the historical evidences, fact, customs, and norms, while passing their judgment, just like it happens in some case areas. Yeah. Again, economically, we can see that taxation was actually the major source of revenue. You get it in the caliphate, because it actually provided the foundation. You get it for the economic sustenance. You get it of the governance systems in the Sokoto Caliphate. So the caliphate actually implemented various taxes such as zakah, and then haraj, and then there's what they call jangali to fund public services, and then military activities. These practices were deeply rooted in Islamic principles and then local customs, particularly the zakah, which was actually collected from the rich persons at the end of the year. You get it? That's 1/40 of the total. You get it? It's usually collected by the caliphate or the government at that particular time. So it has serious consideration over its economic sustenance, and that's why these happens to be the three major sources of zakat. I mean, of resources, financial resources. So, in essence, we can actually say that the Sokoto Caliphate exemplified effective governance and greatly influenced political and religious life in pre-colonial Africa. There are a lot of things that have, yeah, it, of course, it has the most sophisticated centralized system of administration. That's the reason why, even when the colonial masters arrived, they couldn't tamper with that. They therefore had to accept that one and then only introduced the principle of indirect rule through which they govern the system, because they saw no reasons of now engaging or involving directly in the administration of the entire system. Of course, when they arrived, they conquered the system. It wasn't considered as Sokoto Caliphate at that time because they conquered, and the last sultan was Sultan Atahiru. I think they killed him in 1903, and then came up with their new system of administration. Now with emirs going back to their autonomous systems. You get it? Prior to the emergence of the Sokoto Caliphate or Usman 1804 jihad. So these were the things that have happened. You can listen to this, and then while we discuss on questions, this is for just now. Hopefully, I will create time to just discuss it extensively and then share with you the recordings. Where you have questions, you can contact me via our class WhatsApp so that I can respond through there, or then I record answers for your questions. Thank you.